Yeah, I've got crap dress sense.
You mean that? About the job?
Of course I mean it. I love you, Gary.
Despite my crap dress sense?
I prefer you without your clothes on, actually. Oh, come on, Gary. Let's go and do what you do best.
Yvonne, I'm not putting up a satellite dish at this time of night.
That's better.
Good night, sweetheart. Sleep will banish sorrow. Good night, sweetheart. Till we meet tomorrow. Dreams enfold you. In memory I'll hold you. Good night, sweetheart. Good night.
There's a great pleasure in feeling that you've completed something you plotted 3 years ago. Sometimes the scale of it, or the beauty of it, or the grace of it, is what astonishes you. And this is the most massive living thing on Earth, the giant sequoia. I certainly won't look at plants again in quite the same light.
BBC Sport brings you live and exclusive coverage of rugby's toughest tournament, the Five Nations Championship, starting Saturday, 12:15 on BBC1.
Disgruntled and on the defensive, Victor tries to ward off an unfriendly pit bull, 1 foot in the grave, in 15 minutes. That's after the news now on BBC1 with Peter Sissons. It's 10 to 9.
The Labour Party tries to end the doubts over its policy on railway privatisation. They say Labour in government would plan for public ownership if Labour in opposition can't stop the sell-off. Animal rights activists take their protest to the farms owned by the Agriculture Minister. And in Manila, the pulling power of the Pope breaks all records. The Labour Party today promised a publicly owned, publicly accountable railway under a Labour government. The pledge was given by the Deputy Leader John Prescott, but he said the immediate priority for a policy group chaired by him was to prevent the government privatising the railways in the first place. The Transport Secretary said Labour's commitment to renationalisation was proof they were still in the pockets of the unions. Our political correspondent John Pienaar reports.
Tonight, Tony Blair was off duty. As he arrived at a dinner for a football hero, Sir Stanley Matthews, he clearly felt enough had been said already about Labour's line on rail privatisation. But doubts about Labour's policy have forced the party to admit that it's planning what to do when and if the campaign against privatisation fails.
We'll be fighting to prevent its privatisation. It will be a publicly owned railway, publicly accountable under the next Labour government, and we are looking at all the options. We don't know exactly what the Tories are going to do with their privatisation proposals. I shall be reporting directly back to the leader of the party, and I have no more to say about that.
Mr Prescott's team will weigh the cost of renationalisation against public control of rail track and privatised routes. The party hopes it's settled doubts about Labour's commitment to renationalisation raised by Tony Blair last Monday.
I'm not about to start spraying around commitments as to what we're going to do when the government carry through their proposals, if they carry them through.
The government has problems of its own, not least protecting the range and availability of tickets on sale to the public. Ministers are keen to keep Labour under pressure, despite the party's move to restate the goal of a publicly owned rail system.
If they're edging back to it now, as appears to be the case, all that demonstrates is that it's the old Labour Party, full of socialism, driven by the trade unions, just as we have recognised for the last 15 years.
The issue's bound up with the Labour leadership's campaign to modernise the party's commitment to state ownership, Clause 4 of Labour's constitution. They're making a video to take the message to party activists, and Tony Blair starts a national tour this week. But some, mainly on the left, aren't convinced.
My gut feeling about this particular issue is that if Blair gets his way, then of course we're going to see a party that is perhaps not as united as it was prior to this debate.
The opposition is convinced that the rail privatisation is a liability for the government. Having to clarify Labour's policy was another unwanted distraction. But the party hierarchy may also have gained a little valuable credit with the Labour left wing. And that could help Tony Blair rewrite Labour's constitutional commitment to public ownership. John Pienaar, BBC News, Westminster.
Animal rights campaigners have been demonstrating at the Somerset farms owned by the Agriculture Minister William Waldegrave. Some calves from the farms are sent for veal production on the continent. Mr Waldegrave has become the target of anonymous threats, and letters booby-trapped with razor blades have been sent to his home and office.
A visible police presence as demonstrators marched on farms owned by William Waldegrave after it emerged that 2 letters containing razor blades had been sent to the Agriculture Minister. It had been disclosed that calves from his farm may have ended up in the continental veal trade, and demonstrators were planning a mass trespass onto his land.
I'm here because I feel very strongly that William Waldegrave should be setting an example to everyone and seeing that his calves are not mistreated.
There are animals, they're in our country, and we should have the right to say how those animals go out.
But the police stood aside as the group, some protesting against the criminal justice bill, arrived at one of the farms. Mr Waldegrave let it be known they could protest on his land peacefully. Because permission had been given, no offence was committed. Demonstrators did not seem disappointed. They knocked on the door, but Mr Waldegrave was not at home, just the farm manager's daughter. There weren't even any calves at this farm. The police called it a peaceful protest, but a stretch on their resources.
Whilst we're doing this, we're actually being prevented from doing other things. And the rest of the community is expecting policing, and with large numbers of police officers on standby or dedicated to this type of duty.
But there were no arrests, and one demonstrator agreed it had been a nice walk in the country. Stephen Cape, BBC News, Somerset.
The son of the Chechen leader Jokhar Dudayev is reported to have been killed by Russian forces attacking the capital Grozny. Earlier, Mr Dudayev warned that the conflict in Chechnya could last longer than Russia's 10-year war in Afghanistan. In Grozny, heavy fighting has been continuing all day, with Chechen fighters said to be retreating house by house.
These Russians were captured by the Chechens when the going was easier, when Moscow hadn't realized that it would take more than a few thousand frightened conscripts to end their rebellion. It's different now. Everyone left in Grozny is feeling the weight of the Russian onslaught. This old lady has just lost her house. Airstrikes continue. The Russians are hitting streets the rebels used to bring in fresh fighters. They seem to be trying to cut off the Chechens who are holding the government buildings in the heart of Grozny. But Chechen fighters are still moving through the back streets of the city, down into the heat of the battle. Even if the Russians take Grozny, this one said, we'll still kill hundreds of them every day. We've got God on our side as well, his colleague added. All the Russians have is vodka. And as far as the Chechens are concerned, if the reports that their president's son is dead are true, then they'll simply have another martyr for their cause. The Chechens are determined to make every bullet count. For them, the destruction of Grozny is a small price to pay when they're also prepared to die for the independence of their country.
A Western intelligence report a few days ago said that if the Chechens lose the battle for Grozny, they'll lose the war. It said that this country isn't big enough to sustain a guerrilla campaign like the one in Afghanistan. It's safe to say that every Chechen fighter would disagree with that. Jeremy Bone, BBC News, on the Chechen border.
Here, Buckingham Palace says a valet who's worked for the Prince of Wales for 15 years has been suspended from duty after being extensively quoted in a newspaper report about the Prince's private life. The News of the World purports to give details about meetings between the Prince and Camilla Parker Bowles at his country home, Highgrove. It also shows a picture of the Prince's bedside table there. The palace say the police are being consulted about the security implications. Police acting for the Serious Fraud Office have raided the premises of one of the country's biggest legal aid solicitors, the West Country law firm Robinsons. They also went to the homes of some of its partners. The SFO said it was investigating alleged legal aid irregularities.
The raids began at solicitor Tim Robinson's home in the Gloucestershire village of Badgeworth at 8 o'clock this morning. Police accompanied investigators from the Serious Fraud Office as they conducted searches of various premises owned by Mr. Robinson and his partners. His firm is represented throughout the West Country, with offices in Gloucester, Cheltenham, Swindon and Bristol. He runs one of the biggest legal aid practices in Britain. In a statement issued today, Mr. Robinson denied that he was guilty of any offence. "We have total confidence that the firm will be given a clean bill of health," he said, adding the firm took its own in-house precautions to prevent fraud. The SFO operation comes just days after the Lord Chancellor indicated that he was introducing changes to the legal aid system intended to cut the annual £1.4 billion budget. Fears have been raised in the past that the legal aid system is particularly susceptible to abuse. Critics point to the practice of solicitors being paid for legal advice, where a signature on a form is sufficient for a lawyer to claim payment. There's no suggestion that Mr. Robinson has been involved in such practices. The SFO would only say that they were investigating certain legal aid irregularities. Juliet Bremner, BBC News.
The Pope has celebrated an open-air mass before a congregation of around 4 million people in the capital of the Philippines, Manila. Vatican officials believe it was the biggest papal mass in history.
Pope John Paul had to take to the air today to get to Sunday Mass by helicopter. So dense was the crowd on the ground that the path of his armoured motorcade had been blocked. The Vatican had expected a congregation of 1 million people. In the end, at least 3 times as many crammed into the centre of Manila. It was the Pope's turn to be awed. Even he had never drawn such crowds. The mass adulation for him in Asia's only Catholic country has clearly revived the ailing pontiff. Here the Pope is worshipped as more than just the head of the Catholic Church, but as a living saint. The authorities estimate that well over 3 million people, possibly as many as 4 million, have turned up here today to be close to the Pope. That would make this the biggest papal mass in history. His message was stern. He condemned birth control and contraception as a form of moral slavery. But not all the faithful in this poor country will follow his preachings to the letter.
Now sport. Wigan are through to the final of Rugby League's Regal Trophy after a convincing victory over Castleford. They won by 34 points to 6. The Great Britain winger Martin O'Fire scored 3 tries to take his total for the season to 30. Wigan will now play Warrington in the final of the competition later this month. In football's Premiership, Manchester United, without their new £7 million signing Andy Cole, could manage only a 1-1 draw at Newcastle. The club Cole left earlier this week. There was no sign of the player at the match. He'd been advised by the police to stay away.
A resounding boo for Manchester United manager Alex Ferguson, the man who expensively stole Andy Cole from Newcastle. His new signing, though, was absent, a decision made by the clubs in consultation with the police. But there was no real bitterness in the air. Newcastle manager Kevin Keegan has skillfully sold the sale to the fans.
After all, he is the manager, and we may not agree with what he's doing, but I think we've got to trust him. You never know who he's going to bring in.
We've probably seen the best of Cole, and I think Keegan will do well with the money that he's getting off Cole in the future.
Keith Gillespie, who went to Newcastle in part exchange for Cole, sat close to his new manager at a match watched by Cole on television. They saw Manchester United take an early lead through Mark Hughes, the man for whom Cole is a long-term replacement and whose transfer is regarded as imminent. The irony was deep and painful. Hughes left the field for 12 stitches in a leg wound, the scene inviting speculation that this might be his last moment in a United shirt. Much of the rest of the game was about Newcastle pressure and Manchester resistance, which eventually gave way in the second half to a goal from Paul Kitson, effectively Cole's replacement. But it produced a rally from the visitors for whom Eric Cantona nearly scored a late winner that would have hardly been deserved either by United or the home supporters.
The supporters of this club are the best in the country. Andy Cole's gone now.
you know, I'm here hopefully for the next 9 years, whatever's left of my contract. So I'm the best chance, if you know what I mean.
Great show of loyalty from the fans for Kevin. I was pleased at that. And maybe now it all die down and we both can get on with our lives.
Which for Manchester United means chasing a 5-point deficit on leaders Blackburn. Rob Bonnet, BBC News in Newcastle.
And tonight's main news again. The Labour Party has committed itself to a publicly owned, publicly accountable railway under a future Labour government. That's all from the BBC Newsroom tonight. Good night.
Hello, a very good evening to you. Well, Monday is going to bring a mild and windy start to the week with these southerly winds bringing the mild air across the country, but later in the day as this weather front works its way slowly southeastwards, it's going to become colder from the northwest. If we look out to the west for Tuesday, further change coming in, more wet and windy conditions. Back to tonight though, we've got some rain over the northwestern parts of Scotland. I think certainly as the night wears on, we're going to see further rain coming into the northwestern regions of Northern Ireland as well. Elsewhere, cloudy skies, drizzly bits in the west here, clear over in the eastern side, and as you can see, a mild night for all of us. Temperatures not much down, about 7 or 8 degrees. That takes us into a fairly cloudy start for Monday as well, with the rain over Scotland and Northern Ireland just gradually edging its way southeastwards through the morning and into the afternoon. Drizzly bits of rain elsewhere, but clearing up and brightening up a touch over central and eastern parts of England. And as that rain edges south into northern parts of England and the west, it'll turn to snow over the hills of Scotland and perhaps Northern Ireland later. But a mild everywhere and windy, but colder in the northwest later.
Reputations on BBC 2 in just under 10 minutes looks at the career of Pope Pius XII, whose silence during the Holocaust still remains unexplained.
A long time ago, there was a lady who was terribly adventurous.
I've decided I will travel. Purchase a map.
Enormously brave.
It is a spot, my lady.
Yes, is there anything you can do?
And jolly passionate.
Sometimes I want to take all my clothes off.
Yes.
She was a fairy tale heroine, but she wasn't in fairy tales. Jennifer Saunders in the true story of Lady Hester Stanhope, Queen of the East. Thursday, 26th of January on BBC1.
I just love the garden centre.
The parents' lot
You're on the verge of moving up a tax bracket. You're on the very edge.
is not a happy one.
Got the number of a really good child psychologist.
The strange behaviour paintings are working beautifully.
The children have design.
Hugo, you're not interested in one of the nannies, are you? It's usually the fathers, of course.
And the nannies
The nannies are selling pyramids.
feel the pinch.
I hate the garden centre.
Tears Before Bedtime in half an hour on BBC1.
Before that on BBC One, the man who makes us realise that life isn't that bad after all.
$1,592.
What?
Leaves in that plot. There was only 1,503 when we came in.
Don't talk such utter drivel.
I'm telling you.
It's artificial.
Is it? How much longer is it going to keep as my buttocks are turning into fossilized fuel? Of course, that's solicitors for you. The longer they keep each client up there, the more they can charge them. That's how they make their money. They'd break wind on the phone and send you a bill for it. I've a good mind just to pack it all in and go home.